Greetings, boys and girls. This is Mr. S with your Chapter 5 test review on language. There are 42 multiple choice, 3 short answers. So let's get to it. A lot of the emphasis on this test will be on English as a language, looking at its history and so forth, because that's what we have in this country. And as it is, the most important language in North America because the diffusion of English colonies. So look at the movement of the English language, the historical part. When we look at British and American English, look at what is different and what is the same. And there are many things that are different. The one thing that is the same between British and American English is the alphabet. No terms like lingua franca, a literary tradition, a dialect. And one of the reasons that English has been accepted globally is due to the fact that of its role as a common language of the global economy and culture. And because so much of business in our culture is done in English and it has such an impact on the world, that is why globally you will still see English in many, many parts of the world. We talked about the idea of isolation. And when sometimes people migrate, isolation can result into one language turning into two. Then we talked about the structure of languages. So know things like what is a language family versus a language branch. You need to know some of the different backgrounds. For example, know the basic Romance languages like French, Romanian, Italian, Portuguese. Know the idea that in Brazil the most widely spoken language is Portuguese. Know what a creolized language or Creole is. Then know, we're going to talk about in language families, English is in which language family, and that's the Indo-European. Know the idea again of the roles of being isolated, and look at Iceland and the Icelandic language and how it has changed less than any other Germanic language. Look at the idea of language family for Asia and the Sino-Tibetan language family, which is mostly what you would see in China. And then we talked about the most important language family in sub-Saharan Africa is the Niger-Congo. So look at that perspective of Indo-European English, Sino-Tibetan, where you will see used in Asia and China, and then the third would be Sub-Saharan Africa and Niger-Congo. We talked about the idea of revived languages, and Hebrew is a good example of that. We talked about things like Franglish. We talked about why English is so popular or a big part of the internet, and again, due to the global economy. It is still the most dominant language on the internet, but is slowly using its place, and we may see someday as internet users increase that in other parts of the world that English will not be the most leading language on the internet. Then we talked about the idea of, again, in the Indo-European language, English is the most widely spoken. In South America, you can look at the most important languages there are Portuguese and Spanish. We looked at the role of French in Canada and Spanish in the U.S., sort of when we looked at Quebec versus parts of the U.S. where Spanish is used, so look at that. We looked at the ideas on how the English language early developed, and one of the contributions was some of the early groups coming from Denmark invaded England, more specifically the Angles and the Normans invaded England. They originally were tribes that were in Denmark. When they invaded England, that was the start for us of the English language. We talked about the term an isogloss, so please know what that is. It's a boundary between language regions. And again, know the order of families. Indo-European is the largest. Sino-Tibetan, second largest. Um, let's see what else. We talked about the theories of how the first speakers of the Indo-European language developed, and there are a couple different theories. In both cases, we look at the idea of the Kurgans, and the Kurgans were the people that were in present-day Russia and Kazakhstan. They were horse and cattle herders from the grasslands. And one theory, Marija Gimbuta's theory, believed that the Kurgans who were raising their cattle were the first. Then we can look at Colin Renfrew Anatolian hearth theory, and his belief is that the Indo-European languages diffused across Europe with agriculture, and as farmers moved, they went that way. So please know the two differences. Know the structure that, for example, if you're looking at a family tree, we know that languages are what are on the leaves, if you look at the picture, and the trunks represent the language families. So look at that idea, those pictures that I showed you and that they're in the book. English is part of the Germanic branch, so please know that. And then finally, as I said, the most spoken, the language with the greatest number of native speakers in the world is Mandarin. And when we're talking about Chinese language and culture, that Chinese language is written with ideograms, and we looked at some of those in the picture. One of the reasons there are so many different languages in Africa is due to the isolation between tribal groups over thousands of years. And then finally we looked at the idea of the Flemings and Walloons, so know what country they live in, what their background is. And then finally we talked about Pidgin language, and Pidgin language has no native speakers due to the nature of its creation. Look at Basque as an isolated language. And what else? I think that's pretty much it. But do look at the Basque, look at the Flemings and Walloons in Belgium. So that should do the 40 multiple choice for the most part. And then your 3 short answers again. Know the world's largest family, language family. Know the world's second largest family. And also know about the Flemings and Walloons, what country they live in, and what languages we speak in the northern half and what we speak in the southern half. That should be it. Good luck. Watch this, write good notes, and do well. Talk to you later. Bye.